Manchester City could permanently promote teenage sensation to first team after tactical change. Manchester City teenager Divine Mukasa enjoyed a good debut as Pep Guardiola's side beat Huddersfield Town 2-0 in the Carabao Cup. Having done their best impression of a Jose Mourinho team at the weekend, this trip across the Pennines could have felt like Pep Guardiola reasserting his principles of possession. So determined was he to show that Sunday was a one-off that Guardiola even went back to the tactic he is often credited with pioneering, the false nine. Divine Mukasa might not be Lionel Messi, or Phil Foden, or Bernardo Silva for that matter, but compared to Erling Haaland, he is more false nine than number 9. There were times when this was like watching City pre-Haaland again, albeit the opposition were limited and the goals didn't flow. Mukasa, 18, did his chances of further first-team involvement no harm at all, however. It crept under the radar, but the debutant was one of 6 players in the starting 11 that City could lay claim to being academy graduates, having joined the club at 16 from West Ham United. He could have gone out on loan this summer, having been a productive attacker for the under-18s, but it was felt there was merit in keeping him around, and he has become a regular in first-team training this season. After 3 appearances on the bench last week, he got his chance to start in this Carabao Cup tie and showed enough to suggest he will get more chances this term. Mukasa started as the central striker in what was otherwise a very strong City side, but he interpreted the role very differently from Haaland. The teenager drifted to the left and deep, often going alongside or even behind Foden, while Savinho and Oscar Bob were left high and wide. He took the right direction to return the ball to Phil Foden for his goal and dropped deep early in the second half to get on the ball and spray an excellent pass out wide to Bob. The London-born youngster wasn't afraid to initiate either. One first-half shot from distance was deflected wide for a corner, and he had a second-half volley saved by Lee Nichols. Mukasa showed his technique to catch the volley flush, only to direct it straight at the goalkeeper. It had been a night of frustration for City, until Savinho's goal finally put the tie beyond doubt. City were in control throughout. Their average share of possession for the week is now a shade over 55%, which should end the idea that Guardiola woke up on Sunday morning and decided it was time to channel his inner Mourinho. The Blues were forced back by Arsenal at the weekend, but the boot was on the other foot in West Yorkshire. They pinned the Terriers in for large periods of the game and monopolised possession to the point that they had more than 75% of the ball. If there was a criticism, it was a lack of cutting edge, and Guardiola looked vexed when he hauled all 11 players over for an impromptu and animated team talk with just 4 minutes of the first half to play. With Zeppi Redmond receiving attention, the City boss frantically waved his team over, including James Trafford, who might have been glad of the chance to get his steps in after a quiet first half. In truth, their lead never felt under threat. This was as routine as Carabao Cup third-round ties get, but for the youngest member of their starting X, it will be a night he never forgets. Newcastle United escaped second transfer bombshell after Manchester City interest. Newcastle United were the subject of an inquiry from Manchester City for Bruno Guimaraes this summer. But the conversation was quickly ended with the Brazilian happy on Tyneside Newcastle United rebuffed an approach from Manchester City this summer for Bruno Guimaraes. But the discussion was quickly dismissed and a prolonged transfer saga was prevented. The inquiry, understood to have originated from intermediaries within the agent network, emerged in early June during the temporary FIFA transfer window prior to the FIFA Club World Cup. However, Newcastle rejected the interest with Bruno content on Tyneside and willing to discuss future contract talks down the road. Unlike the Alexander Isak scenario, when the Sweden striker declined to feature and set his sights on Liverpool at the first hint of genuine interest, Bruno declared his allegiance to Newcastle and informed those close to him he was dedicated for the 2025/26 campaign ahead. Manchester City immediately switched their attention to AC Milan midfielder Tijani Reinders and completed a swift deal for £46.5 million in time for the Dutchman to feature at the FIFA Club World Cup, reports Chronicle Live. What was observed internally was that Bruno's focus remained unwavering, with Isak essentially refusing to play to engineer his departure. The South American has 3 years remaining, and a fresh contract could be on the horizon for the ambitious former Lion star. Discussing his future, Bruno told Chronicle Live last week he is completely concentrated on Newcastle and said, "I have never changed my mind, and I still look to make history at this club. We have been in the Champions League 2 times in the last 3 years. That is unbelievable for us. We have to keep that going. There is a big job for us to do here, and I want to be part of this team." Meanwhile, Newcastle goalkeeper Odysseas Vlachadimos has broken his silence after St James's Park exit in the summer. The 31-year-old keeper joined Sevilla on loan at the close of the transfer window, following a patient summer-long wait for his departure. Eddie Howe chose not to field the £20 million acquisition from Nottingham Forest during pre-season, whilst the Greek stopper remained on the verge of a switch. Despite featuring for just half a match at Newcastle, he has already turned out twice in La Liga. Vlachadimos, who might yet return to United given there's no obligation attached to his loan arrangement, barely mentioned his stint on Tyneside during his maiden Sevilla interview. He said, "I'm happy to be here. It was like a rollercoaster ride. I couldn't wait to come. And finally, we made it. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to meeting my teammates, staff, and coaching staff. I can't wait to get started. I feel good, and also, as I said, I want to play. I'm hungry to play and I can't wait, really. I can't." Pep Guardiola makes Manchester City admission after another huge injury blow. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola is trying to protect his squad after a grueling week for the Blues. Pep Guardiola admitted that Manchester City may not have the strength to challenge on all fronts as they head to Huddersfield to start their Carabao Cup campaign. The League Cup was the first trophy that Guardiola won in English football and started a remarkable era of success in the game that the Blues are adamant is not over yet. They went on to win the competition for 4 years in a row, carrying out the manager's mantra that every game matters. City's last success was 2021 though, with early exits in the last 4 years. Last season's defeat to Tottenham came at the start of an injury crisis that ruined their chances of success in every competition. And Guardiola is not prepared to risk Premier League or Champions League hopes this season with injuries in the League Cup. Ryan Ait-Nouri, Ryan Cherki, Omar Marmoush and Mateo Kovacic are all sidelined, and at the end of 3 exhausting games in a week, Erling Haaland needs a rest, and Abdulkadir Kusanov injured himself. Kusanov is not expected to play again until after the October international break, in another blow to City. "It was a really tough week in terms of being physically demanding," Guardiola said. "Emotionally, we came from 2 defeats. The last game was really tough with recovery, coming back from London late. Today the players are so tired, and tomorrow we have a game against a League One team away. My only concern is rest energy for the players. Divine Mukasa and Stephen Mfuni will come for sure, and after we will see if they play from the beginning or during the game. It is an incredible competition in the beginning, and for the guys who didn't play in the first games to get rhythm and play. But when we have injuries like we have now, I will not spend too much energy for this competition because the priority is the Premier League. In these circumstances, it is the Premier League and the Champions League." Manchester City held youngster back. Now he is ready to be unleashed by Pep Guardiola. Manchester City will make a number of changes to their team for Huddersfield, and Divine Mukasa could be one of the main beneficiaries Pep Guardiola had too big a squad for too long. The influx of January signings worked to stabilise the team amid their injury crisis, but as more players returned, it made for some uncomfortable decisions for match days. The Manchester City boss believes that a smaller group is needed for competitiveness and trust, with anyone who feels like they aren't a valued member of the group with the chance to play every week losing motivation and failing to push their teammates as a result. Having won what he has won, there is plenty of evidence to back up the theory. It meant, though, that when City signed another 4 players at the beginning of the summer window, Guardiola made the call not to include any youngsters in his squad for the Club World Cup. The summer is usually the best opportunity for academy players to get themselves in front of the manager, but this time there was no chance. Except for the only friendly of pre-season, where despite a squad that still needed cutting, Guardiola opted to include Divine Mukasa, a young forward a few weeks shy of his 18th birthday at the time. Mukasa came on in the second half against Palermo and impressed, including some nice link-up play for a Tijani Reinders goal. Guardiola was happy enough that when he encountered more first-team injuries at the beginning of the season, Phil Foden, Ryan Cherki and Savinho were all absent. He called up Mukasa as well as Ryan McAdoo and Rygan Heskey to train with the team. Mukasa has been on the bench for the last 3 games against United, Napoli and Arsenal, and will make his senior debut at Huddersfield. That Mukasa has been spotted is a nod to, among other things, his flair and ability to take risks for goals. City crashed out of the UEFA Youth League quarter-finals to a last-minute winner after Mukasa had tried to be too clever from the penalty spot. Yet in the previous round he had got them through with a Panenka from the spot that hit the bar and bounced down over the line. He was prolific with goals and assists for the under-18s last season, attracting scouts to games and clubs to City's door in summer, wanting to take him on loan. Rejected parties were told that he was wanted close to the first team. That fast-tracking is only a result of a delay though. Having arrived into the under-18s from West Ham in 2023, Mukasa was actually kept back a year rather than pushed up to the under-20s like most of his age group in order to build his rhythm and confidence up. The first 6 months were tough, especially with City playing such a different way and the high standards from the club, he told the Manchester Evening News in April. It wasn't just me getting used to the club, it was the staff getting used to me, what my attributes are, trying to help me optimise them. It was a little bit